Well, welcome back. It is hard to overstate the economic implications at play right now. Let's take a look at U.S. stocks. You can see right now the Dow Jones down almost 6%, the S&P 500 down over 5.5%, and NASDAQ down 4.5%. Well, with the plummeting stock market, a source is telling CNN that the White House Treasury Secretary is warning Congress that unemployment in the United States could hit 20%. That would double the peak of the 2008 financial crisis. And the U.S. Treasury Secretary says the airline industry hasn't faced anything like this in recent memory.
I think, as you know, this is worse than 9/11. For the airline industry, this is, they are almost ground to a halt. The president wants to make sure that although we don't want people to travel unless it's critical, we want to maintain for critical travel the right to have domestic travel.
With us now is Roger Dow, the president and CEO of the U.S. Travel Association, and he attended Tuesday's industry meeting with Vice President Mike Pence. Good to have you with us.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
Pretty well, considering the circumstances. So I want to get your take on this, because some economists, I guess the ones that are quite optimistic, are saying that this crisis is like 9/11 and we will recover quickly. But we've heard from the CEO of United Airlines, who has written to Congress and says this is going to be far worse than 9/11 and they want a bailout. How bad could it get?
It could get very bad. We're looking in the travel industry alone, $355 billion worth of loss right now, another $800 billion to the U.S. economy. 4.6 million travel industry workers are going to be out of work. And I agree very much the importance of keeping the airlines going, but you have to keep in perspective, they represent about 15% of the travel industry. So it's not only the airlines, but it's all the people, the hotels, the theme parks, the convention centers, everything that makes up travel and tourism is important that we keep going.
Absolutely. And that 4.6 million number you mentioned, you're talking about jobs here. And if that were to happen, that would double the unemployment rate in the U.S. You've run those numbers, obviously, by the administration. What was their response? How are they going to help the industry, especially given that we already have record deficits?
Right. We met yesterday. 7 members from the hotel industry, 2 from the theme park industry, and we met with President Trump, Vice President Pence, and Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross. And we presented those numbers, and they understand them very clearly. The president was totally committed to, in his words, we're going to attack this in a big way, in a major way, and we are going to do everything we need to do for workers. And that was our whole thing. We've got to make sure that we have these workers not sitting around and collecting unemployment or not collecting. We've got to make sure these people are paid, and most important, that the businesses can keep the lights on, so as this passes, they put everyone back to work full time. People don't want to lose their employees. They're so important, so well trained to what they do.
Exactly. And Roger, we are, of course, awaiting a press conference from President Trump and U.S. Vice President Pence with the latest on the coronavirus and how they are going to, as you say, tackle this head on. Did they give you any indication of what they are willing to offer the industry right now, given that this is an industry that will probably be hardest hit?
It will be hardest hit because we're so labor intensive. If you think of running a factory, might take 20, 30 people to run a factory. A hotel the same size might take 200 or 300 people. So it's very labor intensive. The other thing is you think about the travel industry, but so many other things affected. When people don't make a trip, they don't make the sales deal. When they go somewhere else, they don't sell their products if they're not at a convention. So we talked to the administration, and they're talking in terms of close to $1 trillion. It's very important. We talked in the hotel business alone, $150 billion. The other parts of the travel industry, $100 billion. And while that sounds like a lot of money, compared to being able to stem the tide and bring this thing back and keep Americans working, it's a very wise investment.
So just to be clear, you're talking about $1 trillion. We've already heard reports of the $1 trillion stimulus package that is being discussed. Are you talking about that, or are you saying that there's going to be another $1 trillion?
No, we're talking, that's within that. Secretary Mnuchin's been very forthright, and while we were meeting with the president yesterday, he was meeting with the Senate. And the most important thing is that this happens fast. We've got to get rid of the bureaucracy. As the president said yesterday, finally we're seeing both sides work together, but it's got to move fast. Any bureaucracy, these people are out of work today, and tomorrow and next week they're not going to pay their mortgages, and that's not good.
It certainly isn't. And we are obviously hearing of entire countries on lockdown, telling people not to travel, not internationally certainly, but certainly not even domestically. In terms of when this pandemic ends, which eventually it will, do you fear that people will still be worried about flying, and what sort of mechanism is going to be needed long term to encourage people to take back to the skies?
I think it's very important to get people back flying, traveling as quickly as possible. The media is very good at telling what is going on, sometimes not as good as we'd like calling the all clear. So I think it's going to be very important that we do something very big as the industry to get people flying again. I'd love to see doctors and health experts get on planes and get on ships and come back and say they're very comfortable with what they see and the cleanliness and how the air is handled. I think anything we can do to shorten the recovery time, because it's about probably $17 billion a month. If we can bring it back faster, that's just so good for the U.S. economy and workers. But we've got to do something to really let people know it is safe, because fear is something that you can't control. And right now, Americans are concerned and they have fear.
The other thing that is important to note is many businesses who which involve a lot of travel, I'm talking weekly travel, are figuring out ways to do business without that travel. Does the industry fear that that could become the new normal? Obviously, it's going to keep costs lower for those businesses, minus the spending on planes, minus the spending on hotels, and of course, with reduced emissions.
I think that's been the case that people have predicted for years, but as technology has advanced, face-to-face travel, face-to-face meetings have improved. The meeting we had yesterday with the president, the vice president, and Wilbur Ross, if we had done that over the internet, it would not have been as effective a meeting. You've got to see people's face, you've got to understand, you've got to talk one another. So I'm not concerned. It'll come back, but the important thing is to get it back quickly, at the right time.
Roger Dow, President and CEO of the U.S. Travel Association. Good to get your perspective today, and all the very best.
Thanks for the good job you're doing, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, for more on the facts and fears surrounding the coronavirus, you can join Dr. Gupta and Anderson Cooper in what will be their third CNN Global Town Hall tonight. That's going to be live Friday, 6 a.m. Abu Dhabi time and 10 a.m. in Hong Kong. You are watching CNN. This is Connect the World. We are, of course, waiting to hear from the White House and the coronavirus task force. We're going to bring you that as soon as it happens. We're going to take a quick break now. We will be right back. Stay with us. You're watching CNN.